짱깨보!
Set in Korea, the story begins by showing prisoners engaging in a slap fight, which serves as a contest to prove who is the strongest among the inmates there. Then we are introduced to a small man named Hyun-shu. Although he is not as big as the other prisoners, he willingly participates in the activity and is even able to withstand his opponent's blows. Unfortunately, Hyun-shu, who wants to be the strongest man there, ends up cheating by throwing a punch at his opponent, and a brawl ensues. As a result, the opponent, who did not accept being treated unfairly, mobilized his men to beat Hyun-shu right then and there. Besides being reckless and brave, Hyun-shu was also agile enough to dodge the inmates' attacks and even managed to take down his big opponent. Hyun-shu's actions caught the attention of a prison boss named Jae-ho, a gangster who took control of the prison as soon as he arrived and now has the right to control the cigarette trade, which is his source of income. Because of his reputation, the prisoners there respect him greatly, to the point that the prison guards have become his good friends because he bribes them, and his cell has the best facilities, unlike the other prisoners' cells. In short, the prison also welcomed a new prisoner named Sung-han, where he was known as the king of criminals, which automatically made Jae-ho's position threatened by his presence. In the end, Jae-ho approached by offering a deal in the form of a 50% profit sharing of the profits from cigarette distribution. But instead of the cooperation he got, Jae-ho was humiliated by Sung-han in front of the other prisoners. Because Jae-ho declared war on Sung-han, there was a prisoner who whispered bad news to Sung-han, so Sung-han immediately met the warden to release one of his men. Jae-ho, who realized that his power had collapsed, offended the warden by bringing up Sung-han's bribe, which was bigger than his own, and after venting his anger, the angry warden ordered his men to torture Jae-ho, then put him in an isolation cell. Not satisfied with that, Sung-han sent one of his men to kill Jae-ho, who had just come out of the isolation room. Hyun-shu, who happened to pass by, saw the knife that was going to be used to kill Jae-ho, and bravely stopped the action, which led to a fight and ultimately resulted in both of them being arrested by the guards. After the incident, Hyun-shu, who visited Jae-ho's cell, was given a pack of cigarettes as a thank you for saving his life. They became close and hatched a plan to take photos showing the cigarettes being smuggled into the prison. The warden, fearing his corruption would be exposed, destroyed the phone, unaware that the files had already been leaked. Threatened with the photos being sent to the prosecutor's office, the warden reluctantly granted their request and took Sung-han to the kitchen along with one of his men who had been ordered to kill Jae-ho. During the interrogation, Sung-han, who had been held captive, was doused with hot water and asked who ordered him. It was then revealed that the person who had ordered Sung-han to kill Jae-ho was Byung-chul, Jae-ho's own superior. If Sung-han succeeded in killing Jae-ho, he was promised a 30% share of Byung-chul's illegal business profits. Still not believing the nonsense that came out of Sung-han's mouth, Jae-ho continued to douse him with hot water until he died. The story then shifts to Byung-chul, a mafia boss who pretends to be in the business of importing seafood from Russia, when in fact he is running a drug business that smuggles drugs through fish storage boxes. His movements have long been monitored by the authorities, and his case is being handled by a female police officer named In-suk. However, In-suk's superiors prefer to focus on a celebrity scandal and ask that Byung-chul's case be closed immediately. Moving on to the prison, where since Sung-han's departure, power has fallen back into Jae-ho's hands. And we can also see that Hyun-shu and Jae-ho are becoming closer. During his imprisonment, Hyun-soo receives news that his mother has died in an accident, so he asks for 1 day's leave to attend her funeral. Unfortunately, despite pleading with the prison guards, his request is denied, and Hyun-soo can only cry hysterically in front of the guards. Jae-ho, who was also concerned, tried to calm him down, but instead of calming down, Hyun-soo attacked Jae-ho, and they ended up fighting. However, the next day, Hyun-soo received permission from the prison warden to leave the prison for 1 day, and this was the result of Jae-ho's intervention, who had successfully bribed the warden to grant Hyun-soo permission. Upon returning to prison, Hyun-soo was warmly welcomed by Jae-ho and his men. After hearing Hyun-soo's life story, Jae-ho was moved and invited Hyun-soo to join his gang. However, instead of receiving an answer, Jae-ho was shocked when Hyun-soo confessed that he was actually an undercover police officer. From this, we can conclude that In-suk, who was handling the drug smuggling case involving Byung-chul, did not have enough evidence to arrest Byung-chul and his accomplices. Until one day she received information that one of Byung-chul's members, Jae-ho, was in prison, which gave her the idea to send a spy to gather all the information that would later be used as evidence in Byung-chul's arrest. Hyun-soo initially refused because he had to take care of his sick mother and live alone. But because In-suk promised to find a suitable donor and cover his mother's hospital expenses, Hyun-soo agreed to do it.
엄마가 진짜 아파요. 무지막지 아파요.
훈련 점수 1300 넘은 인간이.
아니, 안 해요.
우리 신장 구해줄게.
However, an unexpected event that killed his mother made us realize that in pursuit of his ambition to capture the drug lord, In-suk had forgotten her humanity, even to the point of not allowing Hyun-soo to hold a funeral for his mother. And his heart was touched when he found out that Jae-ho, who was a criminal, was willing to sacrifice his material things just to give Hyun-soo the opportunity to be devoted to his parents one last time.
까발려 버릴 테니까 알아서 해요.
여기서 네 기록 삭제하면 넌 그냥 전과자야.
어떻게 나한테 이렇게.
And we will be shocked to find out that the disaster that Hyun-soo's mother experienced was actually the work of Jae-ho and his men, and he did it on purpose to recruit Hyun-soo to become part of his gang. In short, Jae-ho, who had been released from prison, recounted his success in recruiting Hyun-soo, and Byung-gap, who was both a superior and nephew of Byung-chul, doubted the decision because it was considered very risky for the survival of their gang. However, Jae-ho was confident that the moment he helped Hyun-soo when he was down would make Hyun-soo loyal and not betray him. Arriving on the day of his release, Hyun-soo is greeted by Jae-ho, who brings his men with him. And because he is still considered dangerous, Byung-gap deliberately creates trouble by intimidating Hyun-soo and inviting him to fight. However, the intelligent Hyun-soo is able to control the situation, which results in Byung-gap getting hit by Byung-chul. Byung-chul himself apparently secretly has concerns that one day he might be betrayed by Jae-ho, whose attitude is getting harder to control, and that is the reason why Byung-chul wants to finish off Jae-ho by sending Sung-han to kill him. However, because Sung-han died suddenly, it made Byung-chul overthink that Jae-ho would look for an opportunity to take revenge on him. Then the story continues to Jae-ho, who gives Hyun-soo his first mission, namely a mission to negotiate with Da-hyun, who is a harbor criminal, and because he refuses to make a deal, a conflict occurs.
확인하시면 저한테 절하실 겁니다.
Even though the atmosphere has to fight many people, thanks to the help of Jae-ho, who comes with his men, Hyun-soo finally succeeds in killing Dae-hyun.
수고했어. 아니 지금 이거 재밌었다고 하는 거야?
That night, Jae-ho and Hyun-soo visited a nightclub to do business with some Russians. And soon after, Hyun-soo, who was waiting outside, received a message from his colleague in the police force asking him to meet him. There, Hyun-soo was given a new watch to replace the broken one. And because Jae-ho knew about it, Hyun-soo hid his colleague to avoid suspicion. However, Jae-ho, who didn't believe it, ended up searching Hyun-soo to make sure there were no bugs on his body.
미친 새끼야. 아이고. 아무리
제가 일부러 보려고.
Then Jae-ho took Hyun-soo to visit a place where he started his illegal business, and there Jae-ho told him that he had experienced various kinds of betrayal by people close to him, even by his own superiors, which made him very cautious in trusting anyone. The next day, Byung-chul planned to conduct a new type of drug transaction with Russia with the aim of expanding his business throughout Korea. However, due to the risk of attracting the attention of the police, he assigned Jae-ho to do everything.
방법이 다 있습니다.
Then the story shifts to Hyun-soo, who was visiting his mother's grave, but not long after, he was suddenly kidnapped by a group of people who took him to a place. There he was interrogated to tell information about Jae-ho. Even he was doused with gasoline in an attempt to leak the information. But it turned out to be a ploy from In-suk to test Hyun-soo's loyalty, whether he was still on her side. Although still annoyed with In-suk's treatment, Hyun-soo still remained loyal to In-suk's ambition, and he finally leaked information about the transaction of 50 kilograms of drugs with Russia. Then in return, Hyun-soo questioned the progress of In-suk's investigation regarding his mother's death.
우리 엄마 친새끼는 아직도 안 잡혔어요?
시간이 좀 걸려도 뺑소니 사건은 거의 대부분.
In short, In-suk, who was exercising, got a secret document related to a transaction that was to be carried out with the Russians, so that in the evening when the bosses had gathered and met with each other, an ambush occurred.
안녕 얘들아.
In-suk confidently opened the evidence in front of her, but she couldn't find any evidence that could send Byung-chul to prison. It turned out that Hyun-soo had given In-suk false information because he felt she had failed to protect his mother, which made Hyun-soo lose his trust in the police.
뱃사람들이 배에서 많이 걔가
After being freed from the charges, Byung-chul and his business associates continued their illicit transactions, where after counting the money, Byung-chul ordered his men to check the goods hidden in the sea, which were guarded by Hyun-soo. And when the transaction was completed, Hyun-soo and Jae-ho suddenly betrayed Byung-chul.
죄송합니다.
And to avoid suspicion, Hyun-soo asked Jae-ho to hurt him. Elsewhere, In-suk, who already knows that Hyun-soo betrayed her, shows the surveillance camera footage showing the moments of his mother's death carried out by Jae-ho's men, so that this reality makes Hyun-soo side with the police again. Then the story shifts to Jae-ho, who is celebrating his success as a leader with his men. Suddenly, Jae-ho receives news from Hyun-soo, informing him that the police will conduct an investigation due to one of the gang members who knows Hyun-soo's identity and leaks it. And because their gang will be searched, Hyun-soo invites him to meet and leave the city together.
누가 나 찌른 것 같아. 내가 이따가 시간 남길 테니까 우리 보던 데서 봐요.
그래 이따 보자.
지원 요청해야 되지 않아요? 한 3명 정도요.
Jae-ho, who had been incited by Hyun-soo's divide and rule politics, called Byung-gap, who was accused of being the person who had leaked Hyun-soo's undercover information to the police, and there Byung-gap was beaten relentlessly until he finally died. Switching to Hyun-soo, who has been bugged, he is now preparing at the meeting location under the supervision of In-suk and her men. Meanwhile, Jae-ho, who has just arrived, realizes the trap but decides to go in anyway to meet Hyun-soo. There, Jae-ho finally admits that he is the one who harmed Hyun-soo's mother while pointing his gun at him. However, because In-suk's men are caught entering the building, Jae-ho shoots them first and successfully killing them all. Because he empathized with Hyun-soo, Jae-ho finally let Hyun-soo go and left him, but unfortunately for Jae-ho, he was seriously injured after being hit by In-suk. Meanwhile, In-suk herself was also killed by Hyun-soo, and after that, Hyun-soo made sure that Jae-ho would soon follow In-suk to the afterlife. And in the end, after taking revenge and killing everyone who had taken advantage of him, the film ended.